Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks, including extraneous material on the subject matter of the special order hour. It is with great honor that I... Oh, sorry. Go ahead. It is with great honor that I rise today to co-anchor the CBC Special Order Hour with member Jonathan Jackson from the great state of Chicago, Illinois. For the next 60 minutes, we have a chance to speak directly to the American people on issues of great importance to the Congressional Black Caucus, Congress, the constituents we represent, and all Americans, the health and well-being of American Black men and boys. I would like to yield to my colleague, the Honorable Representative Payne from New Jersey.
Mr. Speaker, let me first thank the young lady from Florida, Ms. Schiffers McCormick, for allowing me the opportunity to speak today, and also the gentleman from Illinois, her great partner, the Honorable Jonathan James, who comes from a lineage of great service to this nation. I'm here tonight because of the topic. I was once a black little boy. And so the topic is very, very important to me. Because you see, in this nation, Mr. Speaker, it seems that there's a race going on, and it appears that sometimes the young men in my community don't receive the same consideration, the same opportunities, the same benefit of the doubt that other young men are allowed to have. And so I'm here to talk a bit about that. The young lady that has brought us here today, the Honorable Gentlelady from Florida, Frederica Wilson, has been a consummate advocate for young boys, black men and young boys. So I want to thank my good friend, Congresswoman Frederica Wilson, for tonight. She's a strong supporter in efforts to improve the health of black males. She created and now serves as chairwoman of the House Caucus on the Commission for the Social Status of Black Men and Boys. She founded this caucus to uncover these social disparities that affect black men's health in our country. And that caucus does exceptional work to address these issues that lower the life expectancy of black men, such as gun violence, mental illness, and the lack of access to quality health care. In fact, Congresswoman Wilson has done more to improve black men's health than most black men. That is why I am honored to be here today to support her. The health of black males is particularly important to me for 2 reasons. As a black congressman, I want to do everything I can to improve the health and well-being of black men. I am the co-chair of 3 different congressional caucuses that deal with health care. the Men's Health Caucus, the Colorectal Cancer Caucus, and the Peripheral Artery Disease Caucus. And I understand the disparities in healthcare that exist for Black men and all Black Americans. Studies show that Black Americans do not get the same health care on the average as our counterparts in this country. And it causes too many members of our community to die from preventable diseases. Today, Black men born after 1960 have a life expectancy of 61. To quote Congresswoman Wilson, we do not even live long enough to collect our Social Security. The second and most important reason is that I am diabetic, and I have to monitor my health on a daily basis. Unfortunately, too many Black men do not monitor their health on a consistent basis, and that is one reason the life expectancy of Black men is so low. They fail to get regular checkups and health screenings. They wait to see a doctor until they have a reason. And that can allow a minor health issue to become a major one. So I could go on about this issue because it means so much to me as a Black man, but I do not. I'd love to give my colleagues here the opportunity to express their concern about this very, very important issue. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield back.
Thank you, Representative Payne. I would like to yield to my colleague from the great state of Florida, Ms. Frederica Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm honored to be here on the floor of the U.S. Capitol to kick off this most special order hour on Black men and boys. I am Congresswoman Frederica Wilson, Chair of the U.S. Commission on the Social Status of Black Men and Boys, and the Congresswoman representing Florida's 24th District, but you can call me Frederica Prevention Wilson, because that's what I do. I believe, like Frederick Douglass, it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Thus, as a woman, and even during Women's History Month, I want to take a moment to talk about our fathers, our brothers, our uncles, and our sons. We have wasted far too much time allowing conditions to fester that work to break Black men and extinguish the lives of Black boys before they become men. I refuse to allow Black men to be among the highest mortality rates, on average dying before they can collect their Social Security checks. I refuse to let this happen on my watch. I have to speak up. And as members of Congress, we have to speak up. So those of us who are here tonight are here to speak up for Black men and boys. This is such an important topic, near and dear to my heart, because of what we're doing, committing to make 2024 the year of Black men and boys. I want to take a moment and thank my fellow members of the Congressional Black Caucus, of the Commission on the Social Status of Black Men and Boys, for being here tonight, because we have so much work to do. Developing strong Black men is my life's work. For over 30 years ago, I started the 5,000 Role Models of Excellence, a mentoring organization committed to supporting all boys, but particularly Black boys. The 5,000 Role Models of Excellence had an event just last month where we continued our work to improve the relationship between Black boys and our Miami area police, because we all know that the tension that exists between the police and Black men. And we all know that no matter how many laws we pass, they can only work when we change the tenor, the hearts, and compassion of both sides, because the tension has always existed long before we have all been alive. Since slavery, it has existed. Oftentimes, I ask people to raise their hand if they want to change places with a Black boy in America, and no one ever raises their hand. Why? Because we all know and see the issues they face. That's why I'm so grateful to be standing on the floor of the House talking to the people of the United States about how to break those tensions between our youth and the police. The relationship with police are one of the many issues that uniquely affect Black men. And it's something all of us, whether that be the White House, members of Congress, or leaders in our community, must never stop addressing. I can recall at the start of my career as an elementary school teacher, I remember watching how my fellow teachers treated Black boys. I vividly remember that if a Black boy accidentally knocked a book off the desk, the teacher would be livid, scold him for knocking down the book, and punish him with detention. If anyone else other than a Black boy knocked the book off the teacher's desk, the teacher's response was completely different. They would say, "It's okay, I'm sure you didn't see it," and class would proceed. It was crazy. And then Secretary of Education Lamar Alexander came to my school at the behest of President Bush to declare that the 5,000 Role Models of Excellence was a model for the nation. It was a great day in Miami-Dade County Public Schools. They labeled it a Break the Mold program. In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, President Clinton honored the program as part of America's Promise Alliance, and all the living presidents were there. We were declared a teaching example for the nation, and I went on to record commercials for HBO explaining the importance of Black men becoming mentors for Black boys. The commercials were shown all over the world. The 5,000 Role Models of Excellence program is a program that we must all remember. We are all over Florida, in Detroit, Michigan, headed to the Bahamas, Birmingham, Alabama, and Los Angeles, California. To date, the 5,000 Role Models of Excellence has funded full college scholarships for nearly 300,000 young men and has uplifted many Black men who are now doctors, Capitol Police officers, lawyers, city commissioners, county commissioners, college presidents, members of our federal agencies, and the leaders of today and tomorrow. And we have receipts. This is why I want all Black men and boys we want to level the playing field and open the doors of opportunities for them. I invite members of Congress, other politicians, universities, school systems, philanthropists, artists, entertainers, and cities to start their own chapters of 5,000 role models. Because I have a dream. I have a dream just like Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream. I have a dream that we can end mass incarceration. I have a dream that we can end gun violence. The list goes on. And in my mind, I don't see an issue more important than this one, because we can uplift black men and boys and put them on a path to success. We can change the course of this country. I believe that if the black voters of this country, especially men, knew that there is a commission on the social status of black men and boys, we would not be talking about their vote. Just a couple of weeks ago, I met with the Commission on the Social Status of Black Men and Boys, including Councilwoman Kristen Clark, who serves as United States Assistant Attorney General, Reverend Al Sharpton, and our new Gen Z Congressman Maxwell Frost, who all eagerly put forth ideas, bringing the weight of their essential work to this issue of black men and boys. One thing was clear in that meeting. It is long overdue for us to address the disparities affecting black men and boys. The crime bill, welfare reform, it's long overdue. Education, college scholarships, access to jobs and housing. And the number one issue is prevention. We must remember prevention. My name is Congresswoman Frederica Prevention Wilson, and I approve this message. Thank you so much to all of you who have joined us this evening, and we look forward to you working with us and the Congressional Black Caucus to uplift black men and boys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Frederica Wilson. I would like to now yield to Congressman Danny Davis.
All right. Walk right in. Thank you. Walk right up. And thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I want to thank the gentlelady for yielding. And I want to thank my colleague, Representative Frederica Wilson from the great state of Florida, for conceptualizing, dreaming up, thinking up, and putting into play not only the opportunity for a discussion, but the tremendous work and the great record she has achieved on behalf of African-American boys and men as she continues to represent her entire district. I trust that those of you who are watching are in good health and good spirits, because our country is facing one of its most difficult periods in the history of America. There is tremendous friction, anxieties, different approaches to doing things. And I think every day as I try and represent the 759,000 individuals who live in a very diverse area called the 7th Congressional District of Illinois. Some of the wealthiest people in America live along the Gold Coast, the Magnificent Mile. Some of the most disadvantaged individuals live on the south and west sides of Chicago, areas that were devastated during the period of movement action, especially after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As an elected official, I try to balance the concerns of all these different individuals, all of their hopes, their aspirations, recognizing their issues, their problems, and their concerns. And while I represent every aspect of the district, Chinatown, what used to be called Jewtown, Little Italy, an Italian community, Ukrainian village, a Ukrainian community, large African American community, suburban areas, lots of issues, lots of problems, tremendous needs, lots of hopes and aspirations. African American males are at the forefront of these issues and these problems for many various reasons that I won't even attempt to really characterize or go into. But oftentimes when you look at quality of life and those things that are indicators of quality of life, the most disproportionately number of individuals incarcerated, African American males, the individuals who drop out of school without graduating, African American males, the unemployed. We brag about a less than 4% unemployment in our country, but the highest level of unemployment, African American males. And so something has to be done beyond the average, beyond the norm. And so we need programs, but we really need to keep working on reducing poverty. Many of these individuals live in poverty-stricken areas, poverty-stricken homes, single-parent homes, areas where the schools are not as good as they might be in other areas. So we need special consideration, special treatment. We need to make sure that low-income families can get a real child tax credit like we enacted for the year 2021, where individuals who earned $75,000 or less were able to achieve for their children under $600, $300 a month. That helped a great deal. Of course, if they were 6 and over, under 17, $250. That helped a great deal. So what can we do that relates to the needs of African American men and boys? We can enact a serious child tax credit. We have institutions called PBIs as well as historically black colleges and universities. I attended one, and I credit it with saving my life or my being or putting me in a position. But we can also do some things ourselves. Put more focus on reading. I think if a child, young person, learns to read and like it, they then can fly as high as their understanding and imagination will take them. One of the reasons that I stand here tonight as a member of the House of Representatives is because I learned to read when I was a little boy. And I loved it. And the more I read, the more I wanted to read. The more I learned, the more I wanted to learn. Of course, my father used to tell us, the more you learn, the more you realize how little you know. And so education is the cornerstone, the key. And that's one of the reasons that I just love Representative Frederica Wilson, because she has been an outstanding educator and has taken what she knew, brought it here to us in the House of Representatives, brought it from Florida to Washington, and now people all over the country are trying to emulate her the 500 she started, African-American male role models, boys who were put into special programs and special activities, and I commend her for that. The last thing that I will say is, in order to deal effectively with the problems associated with being an African-American male, I've been told that where there is righteousness in the heart, there's beauty in the character, meaning that if there is righteousness where we make decisions here in Washington, D.C., our activities will follow that righteousness. We will come up with the laws, appropriate the money, and make sure that every individual in our country have the opportunity to grow, develop, to become whatever their manhood, womanhood, hard work, and ambition combines to make them. That is the promise of America. And so I thank you so much and yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Congressman. I would like to yield to my colleague, Honorable Lucy McBath from Congressional District in Georgia.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to Representative Shurflis McCormick and Representative Jonathan Jackson for presiding over this critical hour this evening. I want to thank my colleagues in the Congressional Black Caucus, as well as the Commission on the Social Status of Black Men and Boys, but in particular, our chairwoman, Frederica Wilson. As a proud commissioner and a founding member, I am always grateful for the opportunity to speak in support of the vital work that this commission is undertaking. Just last week, President Biden stood in this very chamber and he spoke of the transformational moment that happened 59 years ago in Selma, Alabama, as brave, nonviolent activists marched for justice and equality. We remembered our late friend and former colleague, John Lewis, whose presence and influence this legislative body just really misses every single day. The world has changed for Black men and boys in America since John Lewis was beaten and bloodied on a bridge in Selma, Alabama. But it is no secret that Black men and boys continue to face unjust hurdles in this country. The reality is that the life expectancy for Black men is among the lowest in the country. Most Black men do not live long enough to even collect Social Security. Black men are incarcerated at the highest rates, and Black men suffer disproportionately from income and education inequality, unemployment, health disparities, police violence, and gun violence. I know these realities all too well. My son, Jordan Davis, was a victim of a culture of implicit bias and racism. A culture that teaches to shoot first and ask questions later. A culture that claimed the life of my son before he was even 18 years of age. I think about the trajectory of my son's life and what his future was supposed to look like. I dreamed of watching him graduate from high school and going on to college and starting a family of his own. Jordan should be living out his life and shaping his own legacy right now. I should never have had to bury my son. I've never should have had to bury my child and carry out a legacy in his name that works to save as many lives as I possibly can. But that is why I am here as a congresswoman, to fight for the rights of young boys that look just like my son, Jordan, to provide policy solutions that will keep them safe and allow them to grow into adulthood, to prevent mothers from having to answer the same phone call that I did when I was told that my son would never, ever come home again. And that is why I am a founding member of this commission. Since its inception, the commission has searched for ways to address these inequities, from education to employment, housing to health care, justice to civil rights. And I'm very proud of the work that we're doing, lifting up the stories of Black men and boys who desperately need our support. In particular, I'm heartened by the progress that we are making on gun violence prevention. Accomplishments that I helped to pass, such as the historic Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first comprehensive gun violence prevention package passed in almost 30 years in this country. That package included aspects of my Federal Extreme Risk Protection Order Act, and it also includes $750 million in crisis prevention funding over 5 years and $250 million for community violence intervention funding to give our communities the resources that they've been crying out for. Millions of dollars have already been provided to nonprofits and community groups to keep our neighbors safe and whole. But we need to continue to do so very much more. Last fall, I was honored to speak from the White House press briefing room the day after President Biden announced the creation of the first ever White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention, which is overseen by Vice President Harris. This is a direct result of our sustained advocacy to President Biden and members of this administration, and I am very pleased that I was able to advise President Biden and his administration on two close allies to help lead this office: Rob Wilcox with Everytown for Gun Safety and Greg Jackson with Community Justice Action Fund. I've held many roles in my life. I'm the daughter of civil rights leaders. I've been a flight attendant. I'm a wife and a mother. And at this moment, I am still a mother who is deeply concerned about the future generations of Black men and boys. And this cause, I will say, belongs to all of us. Just last week, as distinguished guests arrived to hear the President's address, I was heartbroken and disheartened to hear firsthand from a young Black man being discriminated against in his school over his locks. And for those of you who don't know what locks are, that's hair. He's not been allowed to learn alongside his peers in the classroom and is instead being separated and held for in-school suspension. Even with the progress that we have made, our young Black boys face increasing hate on the streets and in our communities every single day. Places that should foster learning and help them to flourish are attempting to break down their souls and tell them that they are not worthy of their own bright futures. This is absolutely unacceptable. We must work harder than ever before to speak in one voice and demand the change that is so desperately needed in this country. And I am grateful to my colleagues in this Congress. I am so grateful to the Congressional Black Caucus. And I am so grateful to the Commission on the Social Status of Black Men and Boys to stand in the gap. As elected lawmakers and loving parents, aunts and uncles of young black men. But one thing I do know, there is nothing more powerful than a black mother on a mission. And as a black mother, I will never falter in our work. And I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Representative McBath. I would like to yield to my colleague, the Honorable Jonathan Jackson from Illinois.
I'd like to thank my colleague, the Honorable Sheila Shirfless McCormick from the great state of Florida. I'd like to thank the Honorable Frederica Wilson for her outstanding work. I'd like to thank my dear friend from the great state of New Jersey, the Honorable Congressman Donald Payne, for his consistency in caring for this truly significant cause. Madam Speaker, tonight as we gather to discuss what is for me a most important area of concern, I am reminded of how overdue and necessary the concern for black men in this chamber happens to be. If it's true that black women are the most marginalized, overlooked, and economically oppressed group in America, then it is without cause that black men are without question the most criminalized and misunderstood. No other community in America has had to deal with the detrimental effects of the prison industrial complex as have black men. And let me remind my colleagues that 1 in 3 African-American children, boys born after the year of 2001, will spend time in prison over the course of their lifetime in America. It is still the case that 1 in 230 black boys are detained in juvenile facilities across this country. It is still the case that 1 in 1,000 black boys will die at the hands of the police in our country. And it is still the case that 1 in 3 black children live in poverty. The vulnerabilities abound. The misunderstandings amalgamate. The suffering continues. There is simply no other group in America more commodified and policed than are the bodies and souls of young black men. And yet black men have been some of the most dedicated devotees to the principles of America than almost any other group. Black men have fought and died in every war this country has ever had. From the Revolutionary War in 1776 to the war in Afghanistan, black men have stood up for what it means to be an American. Black men have died on the beaches of Normandy and in the killing fields of Vietnam. Black men gave their lives in Korea, then again in both the First and Second World War. Let us not forget the recent deaths of 3 U.S. Army Reserve soldiers, men and women who were killed in Jordan near the Syrian border. And most of the time when black men were dying for America, America was about the business of denying them both their humanity and their rights. For most of the 248 years of this country, the relationship between black men and America has been one of unrequited love. When black men stood up for American independence, America persisted in keeping black men in slavery and counted them as 3/5 of a person. When black men fought for the Western expansion of this country, America rewarded black men by then denying them 40 acres and a mule and access to the homestead grants. When America went off in Europe for war to fight for liberation of England and France against the demonic assault of Hitler and the Nazis, black men fought for their liberation and other people and then came home to segregation, Jim Crow, and second-class citizenship. America rebuilt Europe but did nothing for black communities. America rebuilt Japan and left black men and boys suffering without a national agenda. America defended South Korea but left black men completely defenseless in the face of unregulated racial violence and Jim Crow economics. After the Holocaust, America rightly supported the creation of Israel and a homeland for persecuted Jewish people, but left the south side of Chicago, Harlem, parts of Detroit, and all throughout the South, all the places where black men seek refuge and live without proper political and economic consideration. The single greatest factor in the creation of the middle class in this country was the GI Bill. But even after black men fought in the same war that made white men eligible for the GI Bill, black soldiers were consistently denied and impeded from receiving what they deserved as a result of their sacrifices. And this is the unbroken chain of disappointing events. This predictable pattern of historical contradictions, of requited devotion, has peppered and persecuted the humanity of black men unjustly. Today, black men and boys stand as the lone group in America, still waiting for the nation to understand their development to be as an indispensable part of the future of this nation. And as I stand here tonight, I ask my colleagues, where is the National Development Plan for black men and boys? If the nation made a concerted effort to lock up 2 generations of black men and boys in the criminal industrial complex, then surely this nation should dedicate intentional efforts for the restoration of black men from that kind of brokenness. It's unnatural. I think it is about time that the federal government intentionally put black men on the agenda. How is it that the nation can have a plan for everyone else, but is completely bereft of ideas when it comes to the restoration of black boys? Black children are the only people in America who live in a country that has the second-class schools, first-class prisons, and third-class water infrastructure. We need a legislative agenda that will enhance the lives and future of black men and boys. We need to set aside resources and enact policies that will facilitate the uplifting of a community, the community of black men. And we need to enforce an agenda that will prosecute those who use their power, status, and influence to harm and criminalize those without justification or cause. And one that will recognize the dignity and safety of black men as a national priority. We can start by passing the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We can start by passing the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2020. I call on every member of the United States Senate to stop playing with the future of black men, because black men are not pawns to be played with on the same battlefields of identity politics, but are rather the children of God just like everyone else in this country. Thankfully, because of President Biden's stewardship of the economy, black unemployment is the lowest it's ever been, but more needs to be done. 1 out of 3 of every black family still have negative wealth or no money, meaning they are in debt, living paycheck to paycheck. 1 out of every 4 black children is born in 1990 will experience the incarceration of their fathers in their lifetime. 1 out of every 6 black boys are suspended from schools. And it is still the case that 1 in 9 black children will enter the foster care system and have to live with the devastation that comes along with that. And this should not be done at the expense of any other community, but should happen in concert with how we address the needs of the disinherited and marginalized amongst us. We have already seen what black men can do when the game is fair and the rules are made public. Black men can excel at sports, not merely because we are physically gifted, but rather because the game cannot be rigged. When the rules are clear and everyone has the opportunity to play by the same standards, we can win. And when the playing field is even and nobody gets to tilt the game in their favor, black men can thrive. And I say to you today, my friends, we need black men to thrive in America. We need all of the genius and creativity that black men have to offer. This nation would be unlivable without the genius of Frederick Douglass and the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. What would America be without the literary power of James Baldwin and Ralph Ellison? This nation would be an incomplete project without what black men have given to this country. So let us recommit ourselves to the expanding future of black men and boys, and in doing so, let us reaffirm our commitment to one another. I yield my time back to the Honorable Sheila Shurflis McCormick.
Thank you so much. I would like to yield to my colleague, the Honorable Troy Carter from Louisiana.
Thank you, Representative McCormick. Madam Speaker, thank you. The treatment of black men and boys in our society is not a new issue. It demands our urgent attention and decisive action. The statistics paint a grim picture. The life expectancy for black men in our country remains staggeringly low. Black men are disproportionately affected by mass incarceration, trapped in a vicious cycle that perpetuates inequality and injustice. Our boys are funneled into a school-to-prison pipeline at an alarming rate. Their future is stolen before they can flourish. Gun violence, health disparities, police brutality, unemployment, educational and income inequalities. These are just some of the burdens that black men and boys disproportionately shoulder in our society. But despite these challenges, we have shown remarkable resilience. We have risen as icons in culture, education, fashion, sports, music, and politics, proving that our potential knows no bounds. However, we cannot be complacent. We must confront the systemic injustices that continue to oppress us and work tirelessly to dismantle the chains of racism and inequality. We must invest in education, healthcare, economic opportunity, and criminal justice reform to ensure that every black man and boy has a chance to survive and, more importantly, to thrive. I fought tirelessly to end healthcare inequities for black Americans. A part of that is taking care of our mental health in the same way we take care of our physical health. I introduced the Medical Health Workforce Act to increase the number of culturally competent mental health care providers in the United States, and will keep fighting to reduce the stigma surrounding mental health care. It's okay to sometimes not be okay. You're not alone. Stand firm and know that if you need help, help is there for you. Recognize that we are a people, and we all have a responsibility to care for each other. Additionally, I am an original co-sponsor of the PSA Screening for Him Act. This bill requires health insurance providers to offer screenings without any cost-sharing requirements for black men or men with a history of prostate cancer between the ages of 55 and 69, those individuals that are at the highest risk. Prostate cancer affects black men in the United States at an alarming rate, but it does not have to be a death sentence. Every year, the black community is disproportionately affected by prostate cancer. Moreover, black men are twice as likely to die from prostate cancer as white men. But when we're diagnosed early enough, the survival rate is 97%. When diagnosed early enough, 90% survival rate. When the engine light in your car goes off, you pull over. You check the oil. You check the fluids. You make sure your cars are right because you don't want your precious engine to be damaged. But when our bodies tell us something is going wrong, we ignore it. Rather, it's mental or physical. We've got to learn to pay attention to that light that indicates something is wrong. And then we have to be bold enough and bad enough to seek help. And to know that sometimes it's okay to not be okay. And there's nothing wrong with it. The stigma associated with mental health is too great. And we as a community have to build beyond it. We saw what happened with our young people after COVID. Isolation. Our babies sitting at home with nothing to do but the internet, and the dangers and what we see happen as a result of that. You're not alone. The attack is real, and we as a community must do something about it. And the Congressional Black Caucus is doing just that. When we stand up and we fight for our young men and boys to tell them that you will not be a lost cause, that you are not alone, that we believe in you, and we know that you can be successful, and we know that you can be great, and we're going to stand with you through thick and thin, because we know erasers are on pencils for a reason, because sometimes we make a mistake. It's not the mistake, it's how you recover from it. Our society must do better. We must provide better educational opportunities, better economic opportunities, higher wages so people can enjoy a greater quality of life. Supporting black men and boys is not just a moral imperative, it's essential for the prosperity and well-being of our entire nation. Together, let's advocate for change and build a future where every black man and boy can reach their full potential and their God-given talents. Madam Speaker, I yield back.
Thank you, Congressman Troy Carter from Louisiana. Madam Speaker, I'd like to yield to myself. Today I rise to discuss a pressing issue that has long lingered in the shadows of society and the reality of health, which is the reality of health disparities that disproportionately impact black men and boys in the United States. It is a grave concern that requires our collective attention, empathy, and most importantly, action. The staggering health disparities faced by black men and boys in the United States demands concrete legislative action. As members of Congress, it is our duty to fight tirelessly to end these disparities through comprehensive and long-term policies that address the root causes of these injustices. We cannot ignore the profound and harsh truth that health and well-being of black men and boys are in jeopardy. We see this truth manifest in the life expectancy gap that persists between black and white men in America. Studies have shown that black men are more likely to experience significantly shorter lifespans than their white counterparts. This is both at birth and at the age of 65, according to the CDC. For white men, life expectancy at birth is about 6 years longer than at 65. However, for black men, that gap is over 9 years, showing that black men are more likely to die prematurely. This is not merely a statistical anomaly, but a symptom of a system that does not address the root causes of these disparities. Such studies have shown that the burden of chronic disease, such as hypertension, diabetes, and heart disease, disproportionately affect black men and boys. This is not a result of a mere circumstance, but rather a consequence of systemic issues, including limited access to quality health care, economic disparities, and racism. Furthermore, diseases like obesity impact black men and boys at alarming rates. Obesity-related health disparities are felt most acutely by underserved populations, including populations and communities of color, low-income communities, and those who live in rural areas. That is why I introduced House Resolution 1047, a resolution alongside my CBC colleague, Gwen Moore, recognizing the urgent need to prevent and treat obesity as a disease to reduce the risk of related diseases and comorbidities amongst the black community. We must acknowledge that healthcare is a fundamental human right, not a privilege dictated by one's racial or ethnic background. To bridge the gap in life expectancy and to address the prevalence of chronic diseases, we must prioritize this issue and allocate resources for preventative care and community health care programs in underserved areas. The mental health crisis amongst black men and boys is also of major concern. The stigma surrounding mental health within the black community often prevents individuals from seeking the help they desperately need. As a result, black men and boys are more likely to suffer in suicide silently, leading to the highest rates of untreated mental health issues and, tragically, a greater risk of suicide. We must champion comprehensive legislation, expanding access to mental health services by allocating funds for mental health awareness campaigns, destigmatization initiatives, and community-based mental health clinics. We can create an environment where black men and boys feel comfortable seeking help when they need it. We cannot turn a blind eye to these horrific disparities any longer. It is our moral imperative to confront the root causes of this crisis and work collectively towards a more equitable and just healthcare system. We must advocate for policies that address socioeconomic inequalities, improve access to education, increase employment opportunities, and eliminate the racial biases that exist within the healthcare system. All these things are possible if members of Congress commit to changing the trajectory of our Black men and our boys. I've been fortunate to raise a Black boy, and I pray every day that he can actually live beyond the odds. And that's going to take more than prayer. That will take actions from all of our colleagues to make sure that all of our children have the same opportunities, regardless of their race, where they live, and where they're from. So I ask my colleagues today to start supporting, allocating funds, and taking affirmative steps to change the trajectory of our Black men and boys, starting with health inequalities, specifically mental health and obesity treatments and comorbidities. Madam Speaker, you've heard from my distinguished colleagues on Black men and boys, all issues of great importance to the Congressional Black Caucus, our constituents, Congress, and all Americans tonight. With that, Madam Speaker, I motion to adjourn the House at this time.
The question is on the motion to adjourn.